Welcome everybody to another video here, another Ben solo video from our channel, Ben and Charlie podcast. Um, Today we're going to talk about something that an article that I was reading, and I was interested in going deep into it. And what we were doing the podcast with Charlie, we were just discussing about this particular book. And today, casually, I found an article about it, and I said, well, why not talk about this? But before we delve into the article and into this topic, make sure to subscribe, comment, share. Let us know what you think about our content. Just share our channel, and maybe if you find something interesting, why not stay? And so what are we gonna talk about? I have this book here by Dave Ramsey. This book is called The Total Money Makeover. I read this book a long time ago, and actually was one of the first books about financial literacy that taught me a lot, and actually it was really good at the time, and I think it still is. It's solid foundational knowledge. And the book, The Total Money Makeover, goes around the 7 baby steps that Ramsey highlights in order to live a good life and find financial success. So he goes through the debt snowball method when he talks about, for example, if you have a lot of debts, you start tackling the smaller debt, and once you're done with the smallest one, you snowball that small amount of debt that you were paying with the interest into the larger one, until basically you allocate all of your money into the larger and larger debt until you become debt free. And then he talks about the emergency fund. So he's really adamant on the aspect of building at least a $1,000 cash as an emergency fund, and then building that up to a 3-month or a 6-month living expense. That's going to be your untouchable amount. And then the other one is this is the crux of the book. Live on a budget. So he emphasizes that you write down all your categories, and you write down all the expenses, fixed expenses that you have, and you pay yourself first, and then you allocate your money, or all the money in your paycheck, in order to cover all your expenses, and you live a frugal life, in a few words. And then the other one is, once you reached all these steps, that you have no debt, you have your emergency fund built, he tells you to invest for your future by investing at least 15% of your salary into a 401k or a Roth IRA. And then he says the last step will be to pay off your mortgage, because once you get at that step, you will have just your mortgage to pay off, and to pay that off as fast as possible. So this is a really great sentence here. Live like no one else, so later you can live like no one else. And he just offers this practical advice. Practical depends for who, but it can be done, I believe. So it just goes to encourage people to save, to live frugally, and to put their finances in order without just bending themselves to oblivion and be drowned in debt. And the article that I read on Business Insider today is titled Gen Z Rejects Financial Guru Dave Ramsey Advice to Live Debt Free. Self-care is extremely important. So you already see a dichotomy here between the concepts, from one generation to another one. So we'll say that young workers say Ramsey advice doesn't just apply today. They're pushing back against Ramsey idea on TikTok, go figure. And they say that Dave Ramsey debt-free mantra is outdated and neglects the value of self-care. And others say his home buying tips are unrealistic amid skyrocketing prices. So we're just gonna go through the article here and see what they say. So the 63-year-old of the financial talk show, The Dave Ramsey Show, has attracted scores of followers over the years with a simple mantra: live debt-free. But amid rising costs of living, skyrocketing home prices, and mounting student debt, young workers are bucking the advice of America's favorite financial guru. They're calling his tips outdated and even a little depressing in videos on TikTok. And this trend was reported by the Wall Street Journal. And somebody said, some kids say, I'd rather be caffeinated than depressed with $6, because one of Ramsey's maxims is that to avoid spending $6 on a coffee every day, because you spend $63 in a month, $766.50 in a year, and over 30 years you will spend $22,995 over the course of 30 years. That's a huge chunk of change if you see that over time. But younger generations say that self-care is extremely important, and if that means buying $6 coffee every day, do it. And others say comments like, young kids have seen legacies of broken promises. In the old days, there was a promise that you could work for 30 years and you have benefit, pensions, and retirement, but none of that really exists today, because there's not the possibility with how things are going financially for younger generations. And they say here, you cannot buy a house with $50 and a pack of strawberries. And Gen Z workers say Ramsey's advice also doesn't cut it when making long-term investments and buying a house. And for Ramsey says, for tips for buying a house is to buy a house up front with cash and avoid taking out a mortgage. And then he says that how somebody can save $100,000 to buy a home, and this is stated in Ramsey Solutions website, so Dave Ramsey's website. And he will say, for example, divide $100,000 by the amount you can save each month to determine how long it will take to get there. And you will have an equation that you will save that amount of money and you will get to $100,000. But younger workers say buying a home in cash isn't feasible when home prices are skyrocketing, especially now, because it's true that the median price of a house is now $363,000. So it's really upwards from different times, different decades in the past. And it was true that back then, older generations could purchase a house, big houses, 4-bedroom homes, for a much lesser amount, where their salaries were comparably to the cost of a house. There was not that much difference as there is today. It's because cost of living expenses have gone up dramatically today. You see the difference with rent, how rent prices have gone up, and there's just this curve that goes up, but the rent amount goes much far higher than the salary range that people get nowadays. And so for today's generations, buying a house is not as feasible anymore. So what do we have here, though? We have this idea of, I think Dave Ramsey's advice it can truly be timeless. I mean, you really live below your means and you basically start building your finances in a way that you can save for a budget for your emergency fund. There will be a minimum of $1,000 that you're never gonna touch, because there will be just really extremely for extreme situations. And then you start tackling your debt as much as you can, starting from your smaller one and into your larger one, using the snowball effect. And once you're debt free, you really have a lot of purchasing power. So if you think about it, so some people will pay off their car, and they will have this not $400 or $500 anymore, but nowadays it's like $1,000 to pay for a vehicle each month, because interest rates are so high. So they will have this free money laying around, so they will say, well, I'll go and buy another car. So you will have this complete new cycle of never getting it out of debt. And that's something that I struggled to understand when I moved into the United States when I came back in 2010, because the economy here works in the sense that people go out and spend money. The economy is based on, it's a debt-based economy. You see, for example, on credit card, the incidence of credit cards, it's really high now, and and more people are going on default. Or we see during the holidays, the pay now, buy now, pay later. Lots of those still are still going down because people really do not realize that. I mean, you take debt, and most really lack the basics, the financial literacy about how to go about dealing with their finances. And another thing about Dave Ramsey that I saw is that, so nowadays we have a credit score, okay? So if you have multiple accounts open in your credit score, what happens is that your credit score will go up, because it appears that if you're in debt, you will have an excellent credit score, different account, a longer debt history, we can say. When I first bought my current vehicle that I have now in 2018, it was my first time buying a vehicle. I did not have an extensive credit history. So they gave me, because I needed the vehicle and I wanted to buy it. I was stupid, actually. I could have chose to buy a vehicle that would cost less. They gave me an interest of 14%. Just imagine, 14% interest rate to purchase the vehicle. But I said, I buy everything cash, I pay everything cash, I use my debit card. I don't have any student loans, I don't have any other major debts, I pay cash wherever I go. And apparently that's not good. You need to have a credit score. And 14%, I made my payments on time for 1 year, and after a year, luckily I was able to refinance, but it's 7 point something percent. So what I did, instead of paying off my car in 5 years, I paid off my car in 3 years. So I did an extra $100 payment each time because I wanted to get out of it, and it really did not feel good. If you're in debt, I always say this, you're a slave to the lender. You're really not truly free, because you always have this thing hovering over you, and this debt you have to repay somebody. So what Ramsey said is that you can live without a credit score. That you can just walk up to a property management house place, and you can just with your word go and just pay cash, and of course you would pay cash for rent in this case, and shake hands, and there you go, you get an apartment. That is unfortunately not the case anymore, because still personal experience. A few years ago, I go and rent for an apartment. Same thing. Do you have a credit score? Well, no, I do not. But I always pay on time. Of course, they don't believe you. So they asked me to pay them first month, last month, and deposit. So out of pocket, I had to just disburse, like, I don't know, it was over $2,000 just to get an apartment, because I didn't have a credit score. Then guess what? So I start my credit score goes up. I finish to pay my car in 3 years, my credit score goes down 25 points. And I didn't understand. And I said, like, what the hell is going on here? What is this? And apparently, the more active accounts you have, the more your credit score goes higher. And this is really a trap. And same thing, Dave Ramsey says, get all your credit cards, cut them in half. Do not use credit cards. Use only debit cards. Do I necessarily agree with this statement? Not really, but I understand. You buy something if you have the money. There is the basic concept of his philosophy, and it does make sense. If you cannot buy it, save up until you can afford it. But with the credit card though, I don't know. It's like if you're really diligent about paying back your credit card and be on time, not carrying a money every month, you can actually do it. For example, in my case, I use my credit card as a debit card because what happens is that I go purchase something and then I go pay it off right away as soon as I'm done, like a couple of days later. I can see from my account. I understand will not be the case because some people do not have self-control, and here what we come to. Today's world is not the same as Dave Ramsey grew up into, and that is different. At the same time, Gen Z today are facing, and millennials, I'm a millennial, are facing different challenges with our current economy because we have, even if government figures say the inflation is at 3.1%, I still believe inflation is way higher. And even if you get a raise, I don't know if any of you noticed, but you still feel like, damn, I'm just going hard at it and going and working like crazy and struggling, and going over and over and trying to survive. We're not thriving, and it is true. And it's not even possible to put your eyes on even buying a house because prices are so exorbitant. I'm not trying to make excuses. I'm just trying to evaluate and thinking out loud in examining the current states, the current situation, because maybe 20, 30 years ago, homes were more affordable, standards of living were different, and interest rates might have been even higher though, to be honest, because we have seen this phenomenon after the 2008 crisis. We had the interest rates close to zero for the longest time. That's also what accelerated and gave us all this increase in money supply that gave us ultimately the state of our current inflationary situation. I'm not an economist by all means, but I dabble a little bit, and you might forgive me, and please do correct me if I say something that is not according to the economics lingo in this case. But there is also another thing, other than the situations we live in. They're different economic status, different eras. You could say 23 years ago was different. But the phenomenon is also, and we have changed, like Gen Z or millennials, we come in from a world of abundance. We haven't seen any major struggles in our lives. Take away COVID in the past 3 years ago, or those who lived the 2008 financial crisis. We were still young to remember that, but I was still in my 20s, for example, and that was even more detrimental. But so Gen Z, for example, coming from a world of abundance where maybe their parents gave them everything they needed, they never struggled for anything. And now, when these new generations are coming into the workforce, they're struggling because they will say, well, I work 40 hours. How many other cases you see TikTok videos of these girls or guys, for example, stating that I'm working 40 hours a week, I'm not surviving, I'm barely struggling, I cannot afford an apartment, I cannot do this, I cannot do that, I don't have the time to do what I want, I like to travel, I like to relax. I work all week, I come home destroyed, I don't have the time to do anything, and then on the weekends, instead of enjoying my time, I have to do my laundry, I have to do groceries, I have to do this, and this. Unfortunately, that's how it is. Welcome to adulthood, welcome to becoming responsible. Parents are not there anymore, and you are on your own, and you should actually tend to your own needs, and actually also to your financial needs. And it is true that many more people are struggling and younger generations do not have it easier. However, when I was saying that there's a difference not only in the economic situations between Dave Ramsey's times and Gen Z times today, there are indeed different kinds of mentalities. And I would say I found two Greek philosophies that align with this kind of spirit. Because if you see what Dave Ramsey says, he has more like a we could say like a Stoic point of view. Instead, today's generation have a more hedonistic point of view. Let me explain. So, as you know, maybe few people know that Stoicism is a philosophy, school of thought that was originated in Greece, and then it was developed and flourished in ancient Rome. If you know who Marcus Aurelius is, he was a Stoic. And the key principles of Stoicism show that virtue is of the highest good, that the ultimate goal, for example, is to live a virtuous life with wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance being cardinal virtues, and then the acceptance of nature and fate. Stoics believe in accepting the nature order of the universe and recognizing that certain things such as death or external causes are beyond your control. And then focus on the present moments. Stoics encourage living in the present moment and focusing on what is within your control, as I already mentioned before. And then indifference to external goods, cultivating indifference, such as indifference toward wealth, fame, and social status. While these things may be preferred, they are ultimately considered indifferent to true happiness because they lie outside our control. And then practice to self-discipline and endurance. So there's a higher emphasis in the Stoics in self-control, going through challenges and succeeding, you know what I'm saying? Like going through hardship and working hard toward something. And then value of reason and logic. So there's a higher emphasis on reason and rationality as tools for understanding the world and guiding our actions. So if we go to hedonistic, hedonism is a philosophical doctrine that posits pleasure or happiness as the highest good or the ultimate goal in life. It suggests that the pursuit of pleasure, the avoidance of pain are the driving forces behind human actions and decisions. While hedonism is often associated with the pursuit of sensual or physical pleasures such as food, sex, and luxury, it also encompasses intellectual, emotional, and spiritual pleasures. Now, I found that today's generations have a specific type of hedonism, and there is egoistic hedonism, just focus on the ego, on the selfishness, and on themselves. This form of hedonism focuses on individual pleasure and happiness as the primary goal. It suggests that individuals should seek pleasure for themselves without regard for others' well-being. So in highlighting these two philosophies, I might assume that earlier generations coming before us, the boomers, for example, the baby boomers generations, these were the people that were born after World War II. They went through some hardships in the past. They were coming from a different cultural and societal world with different societal challenges. And these people were raised by tough parents, I assume, and therefore they grew up in a tougher world and they learned how to endure, cherishing values of hard work, being virtuous, facing challenges, and also being thrifty. How can I say? Like how to save money, make sacrifices, work a lot to save. Today we have the opposite. Today we have a society, the young generations that have thrived and lived fantastic lives on average, I'm saying, let alone those few cases. There's still suffering in the world. But overall, they lived a more comfortable life, easier lives with the internet. Therefore, with the upcoming of social media, of course, we have this model now where they're a little bit more self-centered, more focused on themselves. And you can see most of the Gen Z want to be influencers too. So what does that say? They crave for a lot of attention. at the same time. And they want to lead and live different lives that older generations. So they're more focused on work-life balance, and they want to enjoy their cup of coffee, you see. So what I see here is a cultural and generational clash between the two. And what I want to take a stance between the two, I'm more of a Stoic character in this sense, but I also acknowledge that there has to be a balance between the two. Like, you will not go 100% by putting yourself and having the mentality of a fully Stoic person that does sacrifices all the time, that works all the time at the expense of enjoying time with the family, enjoying time with friends, or traveling, or having or indulging in something some part of the time. So I think that overall there is this lack of balance between these two things. And however, I believe in Dave Ramsey's ideals, and I believe in his philosophy. I don't completely agree on all of his ideas, and I also don't agree on the complete abandonment and complete self-indulgent realities that we live nowadays, where people younger people crumble in front of the simplest challenges, because we need to be resilient, and we need to be how can I say, I always tell my kids, you need to be resourceful. If there's no way to do one thing, you will find an alternative way. So leave the path and make a trail, and be that one that is gonna be following you in the end. It just be the leader. Make a trail. Even if there's no path, make a trail. That was what I was trying to say. Well, that's what I have to say on it. I'm pretty sure there's different opinions on this topic, and please do share your experiences if you want. I'll give you my best answers if I can, and make sure to give us constructive criticism. Who knows? I'm very open-minded to change my mind, but I still want to put my ideas there and assert my opinion as much as I can. Well, if you come this far, thank you for listening to my little topic here, and I hope to see you next time.